Will you all please stand and join me in our pledge of allegiance and the invocation? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you pray with me? Eternal God, as we begin another session of the Board of Aldermen, or Pearl Junction Board of Aldermen, we ask that you arouse in our hearts a hunger and thirst for justice and peace, so that our actions will be guided by the desire to secure justice and equality for every member of our community. It's in your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Rick. Next is approval of the agenda. Are there any comments or corrections to the agenda as presented?
Move we approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Don Allen, second by Rick Flynn to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. That would be 6 in the affirmative with 2 absent. Next is the approval of the consent agenda, which is approval of the minutes of the previous meetings, both open and closed, and the disbursements. Are there comments or corrections to the consent agenda?
Move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Don Allen, second by Rick Flynn to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. 6 in the affirmative with 2 absent. The consent agenda is also approved. Next is public forum. Anyone wish to speak at public forum?
That's you guys.
Yeah, you aren't on the schedule.
Anybody else wants to go first?
Yeah, anybody else want to speak at public forum? This is normally a 5-minute deal, but since you guys should have been on the agenda, weren't, I'm going to say you get as much time as you need.
Okay, all right.
All right?
Well, I'm Kurt Higgins. I'm with Alderman Martin. We're the city's engineer. And tonight with me, we have Jeremy Stretz. Okay, I was going to say Streets with Stretz, and Clayton Christie with Olson Engineering. And the city hired them to update the traffic study on Fur Road from Highway 171 down to Joplin Street. And Jeremy's going to present the findings of that. You guys had this study done, or the metropolitan area had it done back in 2011, I think, and then Olson updated it in 2018, and the city's got some developments wanting to happen there along Fur Road, and so we advised the city they probably better update that again because the improvements that were being proposed I wasn't agreeing with because of traffic management, and we needed something to substantiate any more driveways along there. So that's kind of what prompted this. And you guys know there's been the need for some improvements out there for a long time at Broderick Drive and Fur Road and Peace Church and Joplin Street, and all these intersections have problems. And Jeremy's going to tell us about them. So.
Good. Thanks, Kurt.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, like I said, this study may not be something that you guys have had in front of you yet, but I'm sure the results, at least the summary of the existing conditions, something you're all very familiar with. Let me just go high level, I guess. The corridor study looks at traffic operations, safety, and access conditions along the corridor. Those extents that Kurt mentioned were Highway 171 on the east side, Joplin Street on the west side. Going over existing conditions, the existing road carries somewhere between 10,000 AVP or average vehicles per day on the east side and 6,000 average vehicle days on the west side. So it kind of varies a little bit. Drops down as you go west. Really, that's just to say that the corridor is operating within the acceptable thresholds for a 2-lane road currently. Review the crash conditions really focused on the main intersections that you mentioned earlier. We were looking mainly at Joplin Street, Briarbrook, Peace Church, Lone Elm, those major intersections, including 171. We weren't able to draw specific conclusions from those crash reports other than there were some rear end conditions at the 4-way stop intersection at Lone Elm, which could be expected with a 4-way stop intersection. And overall intersections, some movements operate at a lower level of service. I don't know if you're familiar with operational analysis, but they assign letter grades to individual movements at intersections to determine driver's thresholds of acceptance. So letter grades go from level service A, which is being the best, to F, and includes all letters A, B, C, D, E, and F. So it's not like a report card. E is added in there, and then different from report card too. Level service D is what is typically considered acceptable for drivers of just standard drivers, I guess. Some movements operate at low level of service currently. Southbound left turn movements with Joplin Street in the morning peak hour. Likewise, Briarbrook, the southbound left turn movement operates at a lower level of service than what would be considered acceptable for the typical driver, which would be level service D in both the morning and the afternoon peak period. Through movements east and westbound at the Fur Road intersection with Lone Elm in the afternoon peak period, as well as the northbound left turn movement in the evening peak period is also below typical driver thresholds for acceptable delay. So that kind of rolls through what the existing conditions are. Like I said, that's probably no new news to you all. So the next thing we looked at was future conditions. We grew traffic volumes just under 3% annually for a 20-year period to come up with some future traffic conditions. We also looked at, I guess we based that number on conversations with the city, some of the area plans that are going on right now as well. And then kind of came up with some recommendations and conclusions based on that projected growth and access conditions along the corridor. One thing we looked at was Fur Road ultimately is recommended to be improved to be a 3-lane section based on those future traffic projections. The average daily traffic would be projected to grow to 12,000 to 16,000 on the east end of the corridor. That 16,000 as you approach 171 is kind of on the threshold of 3 and 4 lanes, so there might be some transition piece between 171, particularly where there's a high left turn movement coming on the Fur Road from 171. So that's more like a MoDOT potential improvement at that intersection, but something to be considered. The other piece we looked at as far as access conditions, intersections, I guess, intersection recommendations. Based on those future conditions, we looked at whether signal warrants would be applicable for some of these major intersections, including Joplin, Peace Church, Briarbrook, and Lone Elm. Based on our findings, those do meet warrants for signalizations, though the westernmost intersections of Joplin, Peace Church, Briarbrook, roundabouts actually function better for all movements with fewer lanes of traffic and improved safety operations. So our recommendations for those intersections with Joplin Street, Peace Church, and Briarbrook were single-lane roundabouts, with the minor exception of Briarbrook having the addition of a westbound right turn slip lane to allow westbound right turn movements to northbound movements going up Briarbrook a little bit freer access to the north. And then the intersection of Lone Elm with Fur Road is recommended to be signal controlled. And then I mentioned the potential improvements along 171 at Fur Road, which could include additional through lanes on 171, but that's, again, probably more on the MoDOT side of the fence than the city side. I'm trying to run through some other potential improvements that would be pertinent to mention here. I mentioned that we looked at potential for development along the corridor and how that impacts access conditions. Some of the specific items that we looked at were connections with Fur Road and Anita Drive, that new approach to Fur Road with Peace Church Avenue, how that impacted the intersection improvement recommendations there, and then potential connections along Joplin Street. And I think the summary there, I guess, is that, you know, we think a connection with Fur Road and Anita Drive may make some sense if there's limiting access conditions between there and the intersection to the west at Briarbrook, and then the intersection of Peace Church, as I said, was considered to have that fourth lake added, which I was kind of in progress now. That was the basic summary of the report. I guess I'll open it up to see if there's any specific things.
Yeah, I might just go over the couple of the extension he mentioned from Briarbrook out to Joplin Street. I forgot what you called it in the study. That's back on the very west end of Briarbrook. You know, there's a lot of development going out there about Schuler Mitchell. And back, I don't know, probably 4 years ago, they approached the city about extending the road out to Joplin Street. So we included that in the study because the most recent preliminary plat they showed the city did not have that road going through. So we wanted to see if that was really desirable or not from a traffic management standpoint. And there is a lot of benefit to have that extension.
Yeah, I agree.
So that is in there. The Anita Drive extension, there's a commercial development along that whole front east of Casey's. And we want to limit the number of driveways along there. And the best way to do that would be to extend Anita Drive and make that make them utilize that along with a shared access with Casey's driveway. Right.
Which it looked like that was already planned.
Yeah, that when Casey's went in, we required that to go on the property line so that could be done. So that's two things that are happening right now in the city that we want to follow through with when plats come in, is limiting access on Burr Road there for that commercial development, and also trying to get that extension out to Joplin Street. So,
Yeah.
With that,
Because
we can open up to questions.
Joplin Street and Furs, that's county right now. That's our problem.
Yeah.
So,
And we're working with the county on that.
yeah,
I'm working
okay,
with the county
good,
engineer
good.
on that, so.
Any questions?
So you're saying Anita and Fur would not connect?
No, we're saying that should be looked at as included with that commercial development of that piece of property. And one thing noted in the study was, we may want to look at whether that's done before we do. The study actually recommends that not happen until the Briarbrook Fur Road intersection gets done, because what's going to happen, you tie that in and go work on this intersection, everybody's going to go through the residential neighborhood to get out of there. So something to keep in mind. It's not saying you can't do it, but it will cause a problem. The other thing he didn't present was cost. You guys might be interested in cost.
It's only half, the north side's ours. The
Yeah.
south side's the county.
Lots of shared parking.
Part of it's airport.
We've got it broke down by each one, but total cost to get this whole thing done 2 months ago. I'm not gonna say, well, it's gonna cost 6 months or 2 years from now, because costs are just going crazy. But 2 months ago, when we put this together, we're looking at a $7.5 million project.
And that was everything?
That's everything.
Everything.
Well, except for the Highway 170.
Yeah, not ones that vote on.
Not MoDOT's.
That's just the roundabout, so it's even a 2-lane road right now.
No, that's 3 lanes.
Oh, 3-lane.
3 lanes,
Okay.
all intersections.
That's total that we would split between the county.
And I present that.
County and us
It'd
and
be
everybody
great to
drive.
do a bond issue, and do this having all at once, instead of trying to piecemeal it and never get it all.
I understand. I know. Yes, LaDonna.
If we did have to piecemeal it though, we had talked about, it's gonna be a ways down the road before we get the growth at Peace Church and the growth at Joplin and some of those. If we did right now, Lone Elm and Briarbrook, any idea what that
That's
portion?
awesome.
Probably a little over half, wouldn't it? Because when the signal, didn't you say the signal was actually more expensive than the roundabout?
The signal involves more lanes, I think, so.
And that, well, that was gonna be a complicated intersection, because of some of the utilities.
Yeah, you got the
Yeah,
gas
we
line
got the
in
big
there and
gas line.
everything. Yeah,
And
it's
we put some
a
numbers
nightmare.
there, but that is,
3 million is what we'd be looking at for those 2 intersections, so. Which we probably, I probably encourage the city maybe to go ahead and make it 3 lanes between those intersections. at the same
Yeah.
time. So it'd probably be more like 3.5.
and I think one thing you said, the 3 lane would be not curving together, so still open.
Yeah.
Yeah, these costs are based on an open ditch.
And the railroad bridge is only 2-lane.
Correct.
Yeah.
We do have to narrow down it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna
Yeah.
tackle that.
That was a nightmare getting that in.
Really, I wouldn't see doing any improvements east of Lone Elm unless MoDOT was doing something with their intersection.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? I think you guys did a great job on it, really. Appreciate all that. I'm going to have to digest that and try and figure out with Airport Drive in the county and see if we can do something on it. What's typical cost of a light controlled intersection? Maintenance, I mean, I'm talking about like maintenance in the future because, the stuff goes down. We don't have anybody that can take care of it.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of bothers me. That's why I love roundabouts.
Does Joplin Special have that capability?
They don't have any signals that I can think of, really.
So that's the one thing that bothers me.
It is a really bizarre
You would
intersection
just
there.
need to enter into an agreement with somebody like Alderman Industrial Electric, at an on-call basis.
Okay.
It's really where you would need to go with that.
Okay.
I mean, the LED signals, Jeremy can jump in here if I get off track, but LED lighting has made that a little more reliable. I mean, there are still more things involved. with
Yeah,
signals.
I'm not worried about the lighting. I'm worried more about the electronics
Yeah, yeah.
of it going through because that's when that goes down,
Lighting, yes,
Yeah.
somebody's gotta go
Yeah.
out there.
it's kind of like all of the intersections in Joplin have the stop signs.
Yeah.
That the lights go out, they put the stop signs up.
Yeah, there are some things you can do to mitigate some of that. I mean, with battery backup systems and radar detection systems are a lot less maintenance intensive, I guess, than the old video camera detection systems. But yeah, like I said, there are still open to potential.
Yeah.
Emergency.
That's why I just worry about the future cost, not the initial, but the future and maintaining because we don't have anybody that can take care of the stop line.
With the addition of the Dollar General there, Lone
Yeah.
Elm, it's just hard to get and the gas lines.
The gas line,
It
yes,
already made it hard. The gas alone made it.
It's hard to get around.
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That's a nightmare.
And the cost of that is just unbelievable almost when you have to move the high pressure gas line.
Because they put a new one in
They're both
on the
sides.
south side of Fur all the way down there this year.
All right, anything else?
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much for showing up and doing this, Jeremy. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Come up with any other questions? We'll be around.
All righty.
Steve, is there anything else?
We'll move right along then, and we'll go to we have P&Z case 2201, rezoning east area of Lone Elm and Cherry, 4 State Builders. And this is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing, and I'd like to open it up for anyone who'd like to speak in favor of the rezoning of East Lone Elm and Cherry. I believe, I don't see it on here, but that's probably from R1 to R2.
R1 to R2, yeah. And planning and zoning did meet on this and they're recommending approval. And Blake is here, if you have any questions for him, he's the developer.
All right.
Good. Any questions? You want to speak in favor of it?
The main thing I want to speak in favor of is I think it's great utilization of this particular piece of property and fills a gap that the city currently has of rentals that are less than $1,000 a month. I mean, that's really difficult to find in this city, and I think this would be one step in the right direction of kind of filling that gap.
Okay. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Mike.
I was trying to find the code in our code here, but R2 is just multifamily, right?
Duplex.
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 But aren't there certain lot requirements still with R2, whereas
Yeah, there is
R4?
5,500 square feet per residence or 11,000 square feet per duplex.
I guess specifically frontage. Wasn't there a frontage requirement as well per residence in our R2?
There's not, I don't believe there's a frontage requirement for the particular lot, but there is an overall setback requirement.
Yeah, setback.
And to add to this, this is the most we would possibly, we still have to shoot photography on this to see if we would even be able to extend this number to this number here, but this is the most that we would propose.
Yeah,
Anything
you
else,
still
Mike?
got to go through a site plan review and everything, but engineers will have to get involved.
Yeah, this is just to rezone it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Would anyone else like to speak in favor of this? Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, would anyone like to speak against this? Anyone here would like to speak against this? Very well then, I will close the public hearing. And my understanding is we vote on this next meeting.
Next meeting, you'll have an ordinance.
We'll have an ordinance to rezone it next meeting. We have to wait 2 weeks to get it done. We had the public hearing. Is that correct, Mr. Talley?
No, you can have, you don't have to wait another 2 weeks.
We have to have an ordinance.
We have to have an ordinance.
And we don't have one now.
And we don't have one now. I'm looking at our code though, just to clarify, R1 and R2 requires a lot width of 8 feet.
That's what I thought I just found.
So there is a lot width requirement on R2 as well as R1.
So I guess my question is, are each individual unit, you put them all as one lot with multiple
Yeah.
units on it? Okay, so not per
That's why it's got to
dwelling,
go through
it's
the
per.
site plan review. That's one of the reasons. So,
That's it?
all I have. Yes,
Okay.
we'll have an ordinance on the, usually Meredith would provide it.
That's your job now.
If there's a
All right. Very well then, we'll move right along to the approval of bid for the Memorial Park Splash Project. And we probably need some discussion on this. I think we've had some earlier on this, and I've had some this week with Steve and Crystal and a couple other people. So let's talk about the bid.
In your packet, you've got the presentation, what it would look like, all of the units involved with it. I forget what they call the little individual ones, but pretty much that's in it. And there's also a breakdown of the size of it in there too, and where it would lay at. What we're proposing is there at Memorial Park, and we would demolish a portion of the old ball field, which would be the old concession stand and the dugouts and that type of thing. And we would leave the restrooms and the storage facility there. The storage facility would get used for the pump room and the control room. And then, of course, the bathrooms for that. It was a little bit dependent upon where utilities are located currently. Water comes in off of Locust Street. Sewer goes over to that alley behind the bathroom on the west. And it's quite deep, if I remember right. That line's 6 or 8 feet deep right there.
Yeah, it's about 6-8 foot.
Yeah. And the land slopes down towards the creek right there. So it slopes from west to east.
We talked about, we had a discussion earlier about not using the location that's shown on here, but moving it to the northwest.
Yeah, you could probably move it to the northwest a little bit. This one, you wouldn't have to relocate the electrical line that goes from Locust. You can see the pole up there.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't have to relocate that electrical line. If we move it towards the west and up into that little vacant area, we're going to have to relocate that electrical line. It doesn't really affect the sewer and the water that much by moving it that way, so you're kind of offsetting costs a little bit.
Well, I was looking at, they've got those two, I guess I'd call them pergolas that are over the benches on
Yeah.
the sides.
Yeah,
Hopefully we can salvage those and put them up and move them over by the end of it so people can sit down there
Yeah.
and watch their kids while they're doing that. In case we ever in the future decide to build a pavilion out there too, we have some more space for people.
right. And that was my idea, was to reuse those two pergolas, sunshades, for people. try to salvage them in whole, maybe not the poles that they're on, that would be pretty tough, but the top structure of it, we could actually relocate it. It would work quite well, because you're gonna need someplace for people to sit, out of the sun, watching their kids.
And of course, we have to have parking.
Have to have parking. The way it's laid out here, you've got parking on both the east and the west of it. You could put some more additional parking on the west below the utility shed and the bathrooms if you had to. I know people always parked in there previously. But even if you move it to the west, that still opens up all of that for parking. There's
Isn't the
still
utility shed the one that's where the thing is now?
Yeah, it's the one that says it's.
We're in the middle of those three.
Yes.
So you got to move it someplace if you're going to use that utility shed.
Yes. Yeah, you don't want to move it to the east.
Right.
You get farther away from the pumps and the controls, and you also get farther away from the sewer and where the water's at also for it, So you really wouldn't want to move it to the east. You can move it to the north and west just a little bit.
So if we approve the ordering this, because I guess tomorrow the price goes up.
Yep, price goes up
$50,000.
significantly.
But even if we order it, we don't have the location set, finalized
you don't
yet. We
have
can
to
always
have
change the location.
This just locks in the equipment, so then we can go to finalizing it.
Design colors,
Okay.
all of that.
You want to talk about budget?
Well, this is something we talked about in our budget meeting last time about use of the ARPA funding, because it is an outdoor fitness type facility, so we can use it for that. We do have the money that we can move within that to cover that expense. I know it's a big expense. We talked about the benefits that it could have as far as tourism, drawing a lot of people in, hopefully shopping, hopefully as that grows, then you have more economic development because people see the traffic coming into town. Maybe they want to put another business in. Maybe they want to build a house, that kind of thing. I had even talked money-wise. We say right now we're just preliminary. We're setting it up. We're getting the product. I told Steve, with that kind of investment, I think we need to fence it so that we can kind of control, so you don't have like stray dogs running through when there's kids out there screaming and yelling and playing. And
We'll have to do fencing, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to do
We'll have to
fencing,
do
and there'll be
fencing,
some
right.
sidewalks that we need to pour in that.
Yeah.
And if we see, we don't anticipate a large recurring cost. We're going to have cost to the water, but one thing that I had said, even if we get into it a lot later and we want, right now we're talking about no admission. We could even add in a small $1 or $2 admission if we see we're going to need to, and just hire a part-time somebody to sit there and attend it just to make sure in case we needed to have any kind of crowd control. Right now we aren't foreseeing that, but it could still be doable. That's the way we could offset if we find out down the road that we're going to have maybe a person there, like maybe it's a huge turnout and we just need somebody from the city making sure that things don't get out.
What did the guy tell you, Crystal, about the size and what he thought the possibilities were?
We were gonna have a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be twice the size of Web 6,
It'll be one of the biggest ones.
one of the biggest ones in the area. Should draw a lot of people into town.
So I'm thinking even a couple bucks. I can't think of any family that would have a problem if they're going to come and spend, all day letting the kids play. A lot of people would rather go to those than pools because the kids can play and they don't have to be right there with, trying to.
They're probably not going to drown.
Yeah. And the mom doesn't have to get in and get
Yeah.
soaked if they don't want to.
Right.
So I can see it not being a problem with a couple bucks. I kind of like the idea of having some kind of attendant because it is such a big investment. I don't want some kids swinging off something they're not supposed to, and then another parent saying, "Hey, you're going to tear that up," and then you have a big. But that's just.
Good idea.
So, but budget-wise, we can cover it.
So
One
if
of
we,
the things.
if we pass this, when will we have to decide on a location? Time frame wise.
Well, we'd have to come back. Oh, far as the layout goes, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, maybe,
Okay.
I mean, we'll have to, if you approve the bid tonight, I mean, we'll have to come back with a contract, in 2 weeks for it too. So
Right.
there's more time to think about it. We are using, it's called Sourcewell, which is a joint procurement, and AFCO is, it's basically a state bid that we're using on it. AFCO is a state bid supplier on there, so that's the reason we didn't go out for bid. And there's nobody around here does it either. It's kind of unique.
And the total cost is?
703,000 is what we put in the budget.
Okay.
And it goes up, what, 16,000 if we don't, something like that, if-
Yeah, it goes up significantly.
after
Like
tonight?
what?
$704,600. Yeah, it goes up $12,000.
Okay.
I think it would definitely.
Any other discussion?
Tourism.
Mike?
So I don't know, maybe the public facilities already looked at this. I kind of just don't like having one option. I don't know if, I'm sure you explored different size splash pads and different vendors, and I'm sure that the price range, when we're talking about something this magnitude, I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars difference. I guess, how many options do we explore, and did you get other, and this was a state bed, you mentioned that, but there are lots of companies that do splash pads. I don't know how many.
Yeah, this one has a memorial theme too. Because this is Memorial Park. We've got all our stuff. It fits right in with the theme of the park too. Ladonna?
It was my understanding from the talks we had kind of at the earlier meetings when we talked about it briefly during budget, when we were talking about ARPA and stuff. And it was my understanding that they had smaller options, but it was kind of, this was an intentionally went bigger, since we actually have the money to do that now rather than add on in the future. And the fact it would be a destination point. I mean, actually something to draw people in. I think
Right to the center of town.
yeah, I mean, what I got from our original discussions, we could go smaller, we could cut things back, but then and then maybe, okay, add on to it later. But the cost to add on later was much greater than, to do it all at once while you're doing it. That's kind of what I got,
It was,
as to go bigger now as opposed to smaller and grow.
Bob, you might correct me, but I think that, when we talked about it in public facilities, it was, we wanted to make a statement with this and size and the number of play items and that type of thing came secondary to the fact that we wanted to make a statement with it and everything.
I think what he's asking is, do we have more than this one quote?
No, we just had the one,
Very more company.
just
The one
one
that's
company
from the
is
state.
all, because the other companies aren't part of the state bid process. AFCO has the state bid on it, so normally, not always, but normally what happens is if they're not on that, it costs you more money. It is a prevailing wage job. So the labor we pay, no matter who we pay it to, is going to be prevailing wage. That part of it is set. So it would just be the cost of the equipment.
Rick, you want to say something?
I was gonna ask the same thing. What other companies provide this service?
A design service like this? AFCO is the only one that we do business with now because of our current park equipment. But there are others. There's, out of Kansas City, there's Landscape Structures. They do that type of thing. This is a custom design. It is what it is. So there's another one. I've lost the name of it, out of Kansas City also. But since we've already done business with AFCO, that's why I went to AFCO. We've already done business with them. That's who we bought our playground equipment from now. Which, other than vandalism, has really been pretty durable.
Anything else?
Yeah, second thought here.
Yeah.
The second thing is I'm not in favor of tearing down the ball field. You mentioned the possibility of moving this north and west.
Yep.
Would that same idea include tearing down the ball field? I mean, right now it's close. You know, the picture that I'm looking at, it just borders the fence. And I guess tearing down some of the structures, obviously, but leaving the backstop and the integrity of the ball
Yeah.
field.
I'm kind of along with you that way, but I don't want to have somebody playing ball there when the park's open. What if you're out on the splash pad, somebody hits a foul ball and knocks a kid out?
You just have to make a taller
Well,
backstop there. So,
Well, the problem I saw with it was that you're putting this brand new state-of-the-art facility, and excuse me for being blunt, besides something that is run down and looks like crap, that could use work on it to make it look better. There's no doubt about that. And do you really want to do that to something so that it looks less attractive, secondhand?
I think you last meeting saying nobody's used it for 4 years.
well, yeah,
she said the BYA has not had planned activities there. I mean, they don't use that.
that's
but
that's
every
my
day this week I've drove by and there's been a team on it.
Well, my thoughts are, we put a lot of money into French drains and everything else there, and they still didn't use it. And we offered to bring in different dirt, and they still didn't use it. And now if kids are practicing, I was told, well, travel teams practice there. Well, travel teams can do what we did when we had travel teams. It's nice if you can book in the fields, but there was plenty of times we had to pay for practice facilities as travel teams because we didn't have an agreement for exclusive use for this and that. But also I have to look at, we have 8,900 residents, and we have how many now that we don't even know if those are BYA teams or anything else because they didn't use it for how many years. And now all of a sudden they show up and they're like, don't tear it down, we want to use it. Well, that's a very small number of people that can benefit from that. And there's best use of a facility that can serve 8,900 people. So if it was a deal where every single year they had been using it faithfully like they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whatever, when our kids were playing down there, then yeah, I would say, but they use that every time. But they didn't use it until the minute we say we're going to develop something, and then it's like,
And
don't
we said
tear it down.
BYA, I talked with them. They have no plans of using it.
Yeah.
So this is not talking about them.
Yeah.
BYA is probably a half to 2/3 of the kids that play baseball in town, but there's a third to have that are not affiliated with BYA. And like I said, every day this week I've seen somebody. on it.
And I understand because we used it when we could, when we had a travel team, but that's when actually people used it all the time. But we also went and rented facilities, and we did what we had to do if we were going to play. There are other options. I mean,
Sure. No, say
a lot of times the travel teams, we would practice at 3:00 or 3:30 right after school before BYA did on the other fields. So there's options. And a lot of those travel teams aren't even area kid. I mean, a lot of times they just go find a field on a town that they know that nobody's using, and they go practice on it. So my thoughts are, I got to look at it when I'm figuring on our money and how I'm going to vote. I look at what are most people going to get use out of it. And like I say, if BYA is not doing that, we have that agreement and they've got their other things, then I'm kind of thinking most of the Carl kids would get, because whether they play any kind of organized sport or any kind of organized activity, they can still have fun on something that's open to everybody. Now, it's just if we want to put out that amount of money and everything else, but I'm going to sleep okay knowing that I took that field out of there. it on.
Well, without a doubt, more people will use the splash pad than use the ballpark. Without a doubt. Any other discussion?
Well, I kind of feel like by taking the ball field out, then we can come up with a 3, 5, 7-year goal to maybe put in pickleball courts or tennis courts or something like that to fill in that space, to make go along with the brand new splash pad and everything. And also on the ball field, the size of it limits it to, just basically pretty much the
Very
little
small kids.
8 and 10 and
I mean, I know you can move the fence, but
I was thinking, you see the fitness course they have down by Freeman there.
Yeah.
We have lights there and everything. You could put a fitness course with a trail going through there. We'll have different things where people can do exercise and stuff like that and have that there. Because you do have the lights, you can leave lights in.
Yeah.
So it'll light up at night and stuff like that. I think there's a lot of uses we could have for it.
Yeah, I really like that idea.
Yes, Rick.
You mentioned something about the condition of the buildings that are there. I'm looking on like Google Maps and looking down and seeing the whole field and everything. So what are we doing with the current buildings? The pavilions we're going to repurpose, and then what does that leave out of
The pavilions, the 2 pavilions, we would repurpose. The concession stand and the 2 dugouts would go away.
Yeah.
What about the one? Is that the concession stand up by the alley right across?
No.
No, the
that's
concession
the
stand is right behind the backstop.
That's the
Okay.
bathrooms.
Oh, that's the bathroom.
Yeah, those are the bathrooms.
And then the utility room is the one that's behind the backstop.
Are the restrooms going to be big enough? The existing restrooms?
Yeah.
handicap accessible.
Yes, they are.
They just didn't know.
Those were built after our tornado in '03, and so they're.
There may be lines at them, but
Go to a ball game. Any further discussion?
I do need this to be
We need a motion. And to vote on it.
Well, I make a motion, we approve the bid or vote on the bid.
We better say approve. Okay. Is there a second?
Sorry.
Motion by Rick Flynn, second by Gary Stubblefield to approve the bid for Memorial Park Splash Pad project.
hand vote.
What?
Hand vote or.
It's a hand vote. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. 5-1, the bid is approved. With 2 absent. Next is ordinances. An ordinance amending the 2020 fiscal year budget.
I move, we put this ordinance on first reading by title only.
Second.
Motion by Don Allen, second by Rick Flynn to put this ordinance on first reading by title only. Will the clerk please read the title?
An ordinance amending the WWTP and GO bond funds for the fiscal year 2022.
Okay, now you can explain this to us.
It's a budget amendment that we have to pass each year for any fund that we over budget.
Thank you.
balances our budget.
Any discussion? Any further discussion?
Move we put this ordinance on second reading by title only.
Second.
Motion by Don Allen, second by Jim Gozi to put this ordinance on second reading by title only. Will the clerk please read the title?
An ordinance amending the WWTP and GO bond funds for the fiscal year 2022.
Any further discussion?
I move we put this ordinance on final passage.
Second.
Motion by Don Allen, second by Rick Flynn to put this ordinance on final passage. It's the hand vote to go to electronic voting. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. 6 in the affirmative, please vote electronically.
Oh, hang on.
Ah,
Sorry.
Hang on.
well, I guess we're gonna have to have a roll call then.
Maybe not.
I can tell you didn't write this, Mike. It's very short.
You got it, you're correct. Exactly how you can tell.
Why did it work earlier?
Tested this.
At least we don't have 7 ordinances.
We should come up with something squirrely, just so.
I didn't do it.
It won't stay.
Can you make it full screen?
I can't even make it stay on the screen.
Well, let's just, I stand corrected then. Let's have a roll call vote.
Bob McAfee.
Yes.
Gary Stubblefield.
Yes.
Rick Flynn.
Yes.
Madonna Allen.
Yes.
Mike Burns.
Yes.
Jim Gozi.
Yes.
The ordinance passes 6-0 with 2 absent. And that is ordinance number
2211.
2211. Thank you. Next is an ordinance approving a contract with Optic Communications Missouri Division LLC to sell property at 103 North Main Street.
May I-
Yes, sir. Mr. Kelly.
Just before we started, I understand P and Z has not recommended disposing of this property yet.
Yeah.
Um,
That is correct.
And there is no urgency in passing this ordinance, is there?
NTIA has not got a contract to Optic Communication yet.
Okay.
So we still have some time. Who knows how much time? That contract could show up tomorrow. Who knows? But anyway,
Need
it's
to table
should
it
go
My suggestion is that we table this until P and Z can make a recommendation on disposing of this property.
Do I hear a motion for that?
Just clarification real quick. Did you say that they did not recommend it?
They haven't
They haven't-
met.
Okay.
Yeah, that's because they haven't met on it.
Okay, thank you.
If they did
Like
make
the
a
what?
recommendation, there's a procedure for you guys to
Okay.
provide it if you
Yeah.
wanted to.
Thank you.
I'd like
It's
entertain a
fixed.
motion to table this ordinance until next meeting
So
or
moved.
until P and Z.
Which
Makes a
are we gonna
recommendation
meet
on it.
before our next board meeting.
Yeah, we can get them in on Monday.
Okay,
So
so
Second.
Motion by Bob McAfee, second by Rick Flynn, that we table this ordinance until P and Z makes a recommendation on this ordinance. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. 60 affirmative, 2 absent. It is tabled until P and Z gives us a recommendation on this ordinance. All right,
It works.
rolling right along.
Voting works.
I fixed it.
Oh, good.
I know.
Okay. Next is the administration report. Any comments, corrections, or gripes with the city administrator?
We're gonna
I
do
don't even, so where's the administration report?
Isn't there?
Oh, yeah, it's after all this other, there it is. Oh. So do you anticipate having bids in for the generator and a lot of the ARP funding?
I talked to Kurt right before the meeting. He is finalizing the bid packet for the generator.
Okay.
That's the first one to go. Probably looking at this fall for installation on it.
Okay.
That's really the only one that he has to do on. Anderson Engineering is the one working on the stormwater off of Pinell in association with the sidewalk, so that's still in design. Working with MoDOT on that one, so that's still the same schedule as before next spring.
So the backup generator is this building, right?
Yes,
This whole building.
Yeah.
And the pavilion's fixed,
pavilion's fixed.
and a bunch of us are going to Republic,
That's up at the Republic training.
May 6th.
Steve, on the pavilion, insurance has approved it, but are we seeking restitution from who caused it?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you
We
see that
have,
being
and
approved?
we've submitted the whole amount to them for restitution, so that restitution would come through us and then go back to the insurance company.
Okay,
Yes,
sir.
if they order it.
Thank you.
Anything else from the city administrator? Very well, moving right along, department reports. Public Works. Got a lot of stuff going on in Public Works. That's a big report. Glad to see you're not just sitting around there drinking coffee.
Be sitting around mowing now.
Yeah, there's 121 foursome. Oh, never mind.
I
I'll be doing that Friday.
heard
I'll be doing that myself Friday. Any questions for Public Works? For Jerry Harper? Keep up the good work, guys. You're doing a good job. Next is, let's see, what we got here? We got building inspector on here. I don't think we got that, did we? That's next
No,
one,
we did
next
that.
time?
That's the first one.
Okay. And then PD. Do I get a PD here? Here's a PD report. We got that here. Any questions for the chief? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have one question.
Yes.
On the whole midnight laying in the road thing that we talked about, I know they were looking at the investigation on there. Has anything more came of that, or was that facility, were they hotlined at that time or anything?
Oh, yeah, they're hotlined, and then from there, if we don't have anything further to do with it, because it'll be an investigation into the facility itself, probably not looking at any criminal matters. You're talking short time frame, they walk out of the building, you're not, it'd be impossible to prove negligence or willfulness in letting her do that, so, we'll just turn it over to the state and one of the other, many of them that we've turned in along with the fire department, so.
Yeah, I was familiar with a lot of response times there, so I didn't know that. And since it's inside the city and they're technically our residents at the time, I'm just kind of concerned.
Depending on which side they're on the road they were.
Well, the person not laying on the middle of the road, the others are ours.
Anything else for the chief? All right, thank you, Mark. Okay, next is committee reports. Budget and finance, Lana.
Well, we met tonight at 6 and our invited guests did not appear, but we will be hopefully scheduling another. Do we want to try to do 6 o'clock again for the next May? We're going to follow up with an email to the Area Chamber of Commerce that if they wish to give us a proposal for a contract for the next year, that they submit it before the next meeting so we can review it to see if we want to contract once again with the Area Chamber. So what, 6 o'clock, you think?
How about if I send the email first and then I just let you know whether we need it or not?
Okay, that works because we can do it before then.
Hey, you can send everybody a notice.
Yep.
What date is the first meeting in May? I don't
Would
have-
be the
Third?
third, yeah, May 3rd.
Other than that,
No, be the second, wouldn't it? No, third, yeah,
Sure.
third's a Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah.
okay. Other than that, we're just kind of in a holding pattern. We've budgeted for a contract, but we'll see whether we accept that proposal or maybe we want to look at other options for marketing and promotion. Other than that, that's all I have, sir.
All righty, any questions? Any comments? Very well then, code and nuisance, Rick.
Nothing at the censor?
Roger's not here for human resources. Do Jim or Mike have anything to say about human resources? You're on the committee, very good. Public facilities, Bob?
Nothing.
Senior citizens, Richard? Nothing? Gary?
No, sir.
Very well then. Moving right along. Unfinished business. Bob, any unfinished business?
No, sir.
Gary?
No, sir.
Rick?
No, sir.
I have none. Ladonna?
Yes, sir.
Mike?
I have nothing, sir.
Jim? No. Mr. Talley?
No.
Lena? Crystal? Steve?
No, sir.
What?
No, sir.
Mark? Jay? Very well then. We'll move right along to approval of the election results. Everybody has seen the election results there. I guess I need a motion to accept the election results.
I move we accept the results of the April election.
As provided by
The Jasper
the county
County Clerk.
Second.
Motion by Don Allen, second by Jim Gozi to approve the election results as provided by the Jasper County Clerk. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. 6 in the affirmative with 2 absent. The election results are approved. Next is sine die. Out with the old and in with the new. So all you guys that are getting off, go ahead and step down. Okay. So I believe next on it is then swearing the new elected officials. Are you ready, Elena?
Yes, sir. Would you raise your right hand and read your oath of office?
I, Gary Stumpfield, do solemnly swear that I possess all the qualifications for the office of Alderman Ward 1 as prescribed by law. I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Missouri, provisions of all the laws of the state affecting cities of this class, and the ordinance of the city of Carlton, and faithfully demean myself in office. So help me God.
Congratulations.
I, Mike Burns, do solemnly swear that I possess all the qualifications for the office of Alderman Ward 2, as prescribed by law, that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Missouri, the provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of this class, and the ordinances of the city of Carl Junction, and faithfully demean myself in office. So help me God.
Hey, Mike.
I, Bob McAfee, do solemnly swear that I possess all the qualifications for the office of Alderman Ward 3 as prescribed by law, that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Missouri, provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of this class, and ordinances of the city of Carl Junction, and faithfully demean myself in office. So help me God.
So, Mr. Talley, since Roger is not here at the meeting tonight, can he be sworn in if he comes in between now and the next meeting, or do we need to do it at the meeting?
I'm unaware of any requirement that it be done at a meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
So why don't you notify Roger then that he can come in and we're gonna have him swear in there so he
Take
can
the
be
oath of office.
seated, take the oath of office and be seated at the next meeting.
Okay.
Very good. All right. Next is the election of a mayor pro tem. I'll open the nominations for mayor pro tem.
I would, nominate LaDonna Allen.
Ron Allen's been nominated.
I'll second.
Any further nominations? How about somebody moving nomination cease then?
I would make a motion that nomination cease. Is that how it's done?
Yes. Motion by Gary Stubblefield, second by Bob McAfee, the nomination cease. We'll now vote. All those in favor of LaDonna Allen for mayor pro tem, please signify by raising your right hand. 6 in the affirmative. LaDonna Allen has been reelected mayor pro tem. Yeah, I may take off next meeting.
That's your insurance.
Next is committee assignment reports. What I didn't do last time, which I regret not doing, I'm trying to make it so that we have one member from every ward on all of the 4 important committees. Not that seniors is not important. So here's what I'm going to have for committee assignment reports for this year. Budget and Finance, LaDonna's chair, Gozi, Flynn, and Satterley are on the budget. Code and Nuisance, Flynn is chair with Stubblefield, McAfee, and Spencer on Code and Nuisance. Human Resources, Spencer is chair with McAfee, Burns, and Stubblefield on Human Resources. Public Facilities and Planning. Burns is chair with Gozy, Allen, and Satterley on the committee. And Senior Citizens, Stubblefield is chair with Garrett and Wright on the committee. If you would so please do this again, Richard. Sure. Thank you. And you will know you are all welcome to attend any committee meetings. You just can't vote in. Any gripes at me? Any gripes? Is everybody okay with that? That way I have one person of every ward on every committee there, with the exception of Senior Citizens. And that's because most of us are too young to be on the Senior Citizens. Okay, moving right along, new business. Jim,
No, sir.
Mike,
I have nothing.
Don.
Nothing, sir.
I don't think I have anything. Rick,
No, sir.
Terry, Bob, nothing. Mr. Tower,
Nothing.
Lena,
Sir.
Crystal, Steve.
No, sir.
Oh my
Two in a row.
Two new and old businesses. He hadn't had anything. Chief,
Just real quick, I won't be here at the next council meeting. I'll be at Chiefs Conference. Assistant Chief Stever will be here presenting a new person that I presented the job to for the supervisor position that's been open for a while. And we also just hired another person for dispatch who has experience from Jasco. So dispatch is fully staffed now, and will be one shy on the PD side of it, but there's also another experienced officer, 3 years experience, that's put in his application. I'll be doing background and hopefully be presenting him before too long and be fully staffed.
super. Thank you. Any questions for the chief? Jay, any new business? Harvey? Okay. Is there any other business before the council?
Move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Don Allen, second by Rick Glenn, that we adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. 60 affirmative with 2 absent. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much for attending. Mike, you're gonna have to start talking during these meetings.